Hey YouTube, this is a video that I've been wanting to do for a while. I see a lot of mistakes being made on the identification, specifically of the M11A1. A lot of people like to call it a 228, and this video is specifically why your M11A1 is not a 228. In front of you, I've got a 229 and a German 228. Your M11A1 is a 229. It is not a 228. The 228s were made in Germany. Some were made in Germany, and for a few years they were assembled in America. You can tell the difference between a fully manufactured and assembled German 228 versus a German-made 228 and assembled in America by the country of origin stamped on the right-hand side. If it says made in W Germany, it was made and assembled in Germany and shipped here as a complete gun. By around 1990, give or take, some of the SIG manufacturing had already been shipped to Connecticut. And so in 1990, the Berlin Wall fell, and there were no West and East Germany. It was just Germany. Problem is, West Germany wasn't communist controlled. It had flourished, and Germany had made leaps and bounds about quality manufacturing. Meanwhile, everyone in East Germany was having to eat their own shit because of communism. So after the Berlin Wall fell, German manufacturers in West Germany did not want to be grouped into the East German products because it was just of lesser quality. And so a rule was made where West German, which there was no West Germany at this point, but they were still allowed to mark them West German. However, there was a sundown clause written into that law. After 1995, they could no longer mark them as East or West German. Did not matter to SIG at that time because they were already moving productivity to product manufacturing to Connecticut. So this gun, this is a German-made gun, and it was shipped to America for final assembly. One way you can tell is the receivers on some of those between 1990 and 95, and even some after 95. They don't actually have a rolled serial number. They have a laser etched serial number because this lower receiver was sent to America as an 80%, and it was finalized in America and assembled with the German-made parts. This one's marked just Germany. This was a police officer's gun, went through the CPO program, this particular one. Now this is a 229. This gun is fully made in America. The specific reason for this video is all of the M11A1s that are being called a 228, and that's just not the case. The significant differences and the reason that your M11A1 is not a 228 but is a 229, number one, comes into the slide. These slides were basically stamped. They were a piece of steel that was ran through a die. They were stamped and formed into their shape, kind of like a fender would be. The embossing around the guide rod, this lug up front, was welded on, and the action, or the lock, the firing pin lock, was pinned inside. The American-made 229, the slides were completely milled out of a solid block. Now this is carbon steel, this was stainless steel. This is made better. I'm sorry, but everyone harps about the 228, and they're nice to have, they're worth having because it's a bit of a collector's gun, but the 229 is a stronger gun. Regardless of what you think about German guns, I'm sorry, but America just has a tendency to make a better gun, which is one reason why they still flourish here today. But the 229 is a stainless steel slide that was milled out of a solid block, and this is technically three parts, one part welded in, the other part pinned in. Now there's some goods and bads to both of these, but that's the biggest difference, is how the slides were manufactured. Your M11A1 does not have a stamped slide that's been welded and pinned. It has a solid stainless steel milled slide. That alone makes your M11A1 a 229, not a 228. The second thing you need to look for is the extractor. On a 229, you have an exposed extractor. On the 228 made in Germany, it is inside the gun on the actual block. And you can tell if they have the internal block, if you're not very familiar with them, because these slides are stamped. The one on the right was stamped and is welded front, and the block is firing pin block is pinned in the back. The slide doesn't really contain any portion of the impact, so to speak. You can actually see where the block is, firing pin block is raised up through the slide. You'll see a two pieces. If I can get that thing to focus there versus the 229, it's not there because this slide is strong enough to actually maintain the firing pin mechanism and the recoil lug. That was the other key identifying points to differentiate the 229 versus the 228. And again, your M11A1 does not have that. It has like a 229, so therefore again it is a 229. The next thing is, believe it or not, the magazines are different. On my right towards you is the German 228, and on the outside away from you is the 229. This is a German 228 magazine. It goes into the German 228 gun. That same magazine will go into the American 229. This is the 229 magazine. It will of course go into the 229, but it will not go into the 228. The magazines for 228 are narrower. The magazine well is narrower. Now you can take a 228 magazine and it will work in a 229 as it's just slightly smaller, but it's just different enough to where you cannot take a 229 magazine and fire it in a 228. It just won't go in there. That's another significant key difference. Now, if I had an M11A1 in front of me, which I don't own one, I don't need one. I've got a 229 and I've got a real 228. Had the magazines for your M11A1, they only work in a 229. They do not work in a 228. Again, another reason that your M11A1 is a 228. Now, the 228, the M11A1 is nothing more than a military designation, the A1 being a second generation. As a matter of fact, I have not actually found any proof that the Air Force or Navy actually used the M11A1 signature. I think that, from what I understand, it could be wrong. I think that's just a SIG thing. I think the MK25, which is the 226, is a military designation carried on by SIG, but I have not found any proof that the actual M11A1 is an aviator's sidearm anymore. I don't believe it is. I think that's just SIG trying to sell you a newer version of the 228, this gun, because everybody wants a 228. I'm going to go and show you a few cool things about these. I'm going to take them down and show you the internal differences and support what I've been saying in this video. There's the 228 and the 229. Alright, so I'm going to try to bring this into focus. This is the slide for the German 228. And if you can see in the back, there is a big old gap right there. And you probably cannot tell in the video. I can try to guess, shoot it angle. Let me try to zoom in on this thing. I'm not a professional YouTuber. All right, now can I focus it? Come on there, turkey. Bam, maybe. All right, so get some better light in here. This is the back of the. This is the firing pin block. You can see where the actual upper itself. This is the stamped portion, and there's a cavity in the back. There's actually a seam that runs down the side, and there's the front, where that's of course the barrel itself, the lock and lug. This portion is separate from the slide, which is what you're seeing protrude through the top. The next portion, which is in the front, Move my firing pin spring in my barrel. It may be very difficult to see. I'll try to get it on here as best I can. Come on, turkey. Not only can I not tell if it's focused, but I'm half blind anymore. Anyway, right here in the corners, you can actually see welding. Where it was welded to the front. You kind of see it right there. And if you had it in front of you, you could actually get it close and see it with your eyes. You could definitely see the welding marks where the guide rod embossing was welded to the stamped slide. You may be able to kind of tell right there. Anyway, the 229 slide, remove the firing pin and the recoil spring. This is all milled. There is all one piece. There's no welding. And in the back, there is no, it's all one piece. You can definitely see that. I wish the other would focus. You can kind of see the, come on, turkey. The difference is there, if it'll focus good. Anyway, this, again, the 229 slide, 228 rather, is is completely constructed differently. Now, but the funny thing is, it is actually smaller as well. It's more petite, I guess you could say, than the 228 slide. I'm sorry, the 229 slide. But check this out. This is my, let me back it up here. Backing them up. All right. So this is my 228 slide, German-made slide, and this is my 229 receiver. It actually fits. I have heard of people swapping them around. I'm not going to do that, but they do fit. Here is the 229 American-made slide on my German 228 lower. So they are beyond similar, with exception of how the slide is manufactured. And there's the internals of both. As far as the receivers, the lowers go, they're outside of the magazine well dimensional difference. As far as I know, as far as I can tell, as far as I've researched, they're identical. You can take 229 parts and put them in a 228 receiver. All the levers are interchangeable. If you buy triggers, say gray guns for your 228, they'll fit. They're 10 millimeters in width. Essentially, the receivers are the exact same, with the exception of the magazine well. And some of the old 228s had some different springs in them. Most people update them to a better style spring, and as a matter of fact, like I said, this one went through the CPO program, which is the Certified Pre-Owned. It was probably a law enforcement gun that went back through and they replaced springs, cleaned it up. Sometimes they reblue them depending on how bad they are. Mine was in exceptional shape. Anyway, so there's really minimal to zero differences on the actual receivers themselves. Almost every bit of it is in the slide and how it was manufactured. But the key point of this video is why your M11A1 is not a 228. It is a 229. Is that a problem? No, it's not a problem. Still a better built gun. I bought this one because, number one, I do like the German gun. People seem to collect them. They'll always be worth something. They're a little more petite because the slides are a smidgen narrower through here. You can definitely, you should be able to see it. You can definitely see just how much narrower the 228 slide up on the top is than the 229 slide down below. There's some relief cuts, or portion of the forging or the forming of the 228 slide. There's a big flat on the top. and the sides are just a little slimmer, more petite. The actual thickness of the slide walls, if you look right here where my fingernail is, you'll be able to tell that it's formed. It actually slopes and there's a gap behind it, and that wall is much thinner than the milled wall on the 229 slide. But the 229, well, it kind of dwarfs the 228. Your M11A1 will dwarf the 228 as well. Same sights in regards to the SIG cut. Like I said, essentially the gun is exactly the same. But this video, like I said, it's just to really clarify how an M11A1 is an Americanized version of the German 228, but it is not a 228. It is a 229. But again, before everyone's panties goes right up their ass and they get all pissy and start whining and crying because they want to call their M11A1 a 228, it's a better gun. It's just made better. That's all there is to it. It's made better than the old German style guns. You're not going to wear out a German 228. You're not going to wear out your M11A1. You couldn't shoot enough if you wanted to. So there's nothing wrong with your firearm. But again, I do think that SIG putting 228 grips and implying that an M11A1 is a 228 is a little cheesy. But then again, they're kind of known for that. One of the things that I'm not really happy about with SIG is that this is one of the original Legions, and it came with the Gray Guns trigger. And then after a few years, they still advertised the Legion with a Gray Gun trigger, but it wasn't. It was one of their formed hollowed triggers that was basically stolen or styled off of the Gray Guns design. I don't know if they just paid royalties and manufactured it themselves or whatever, but they have recently changed their website after a few years of misleading people, and now it says it's a Gray Guns designed trigger. It's not the PSAT, it's something different. Anyway, so SIG sometimes has a tendency to maybe lead you in the wrong direction. And putting 228 grips on M11A1 is one of those things. But anyway, I hope this was somewhat informative. Regardless of which, M11A1, 228, West German made, or just regular German American assembled, or 229, doesn't matter. To be honest with you, they're great firearms. My God, I've had a bunch of different guns in my life, and I recently, just a few years ago, decided to try out some SIGs, and I'm exceptionally pleased with them. They're very accurate, and they shoot very well. I like the controls. Actually, the biggest reason hey, a funny little side note here. One of the reasons I decided to kind of shift all of my firearms to SIG, well, the ones that I plan on using mostly. I still have some 1911s and things like that. But when I got my first SIG and I took it to the range, I was having an issue with every time that the slide would lock back and I would change the magazine, I would end up sweeping the decocks, because that is where the slide release is on every gun I've ever owned. That's where it is on 1911s, that's where it is on Berettas, that's where it is on basically everything. But the slide release in this case is in the back, which is where typically your safeties are. So whenever I would go to drop my slide, I was technically hitting the safety. It's a decock is what it is, on this one, which does nothing. So I had two options. I could either try to remember this and train with it and just recall no matter what gun I picked up and sweep back and forth, or I could just replace them all with SIGs. And that's kind of what I did. I love my 1911s, but I do not use them necessarily for defense. They're just for fun. When it comes to either defense, I either carry like a 365, which is, tiny, small, higher capacity, or a truck gun, house gun, or if I'm in an area where I'm highly likely to use it, depending on my work, I will usually just go ahead and holster my Legion. or conceal my Legion, if just or now my 228 or whatever I have. But I had to switch. I had to get used to the decock's position, and took me a few minutes to get used to that. But it was very different because like I said, every gun I ever had, the slide release is up front, about as far as my thumb can reach. That's where the decock is. So funny little tidbit. Anyway, not bashing anybody's M11A1. I like an M11A1, and I was actually looking to buy one when I ran across this 228. And because this 228 was in such exceptional shape, I said, you know what, they still make those M11A1s every day. If I ever want one, I'll go get one. But as of right now, I'm going to buy this 228. Shot excellent, but I am having to replace the sights on it. They're on their way. I'll actually do a video on that because I bought a cool sight tool that I really think's a good bang for the buck. I'll have a video on that next week. My sight should be here this week, but I went ahead and bought the same sights because I like to keep the same sight picture. I bought the new X-ray sights that comes on other SIGs, like my 365, this Legion, some others. I bought them from Optics Planet for pretty good deals. They're like $90, $80, $89, no, they're $78, I think, $79 for the Trijicon X-ray sights. It's Trijicon in the back with the black ring, Trijicon in the front with the green ring. So I went ahead and got the sights. They should be here Wednesday, and so I'm going to go ahead and replace them out on this gun because, like I said, these are old and they barely work. They don't glow like these things only have a real life of about 10 years. That 10 years are still working. They're just, you can't really see them all that well. That's the one downside to these tritium sights. They do have a half-life. So anyway, new sights are coming for it. I put the short reset trigger in this one. Oh, that's nice. I like it. I'm thinking about the Gray Guns trigger. This is the short reset trigger. It's very similar to my Legion. It's actually, the reset's about the exact same. I just got a little bit of, just a little bit of creep take up. I'm thinking about putting the Legion trigger in here. I'm not necessarily a purist. But I don't think updating your sights and updating your trigger is going to reduce any value of the gun. Truth be told, they're not that valuable. You can find these things in average condition from $500 to, you know, some idiots are paying over $1,000 for them. Don't do that. Don't be stupid. They're not worth it. They're not worth that much money. Yeah, I think I paid about $600 for this one. And the only reason I considered paying that much is because it is in mint condition. This thing went back through SIG in 2000. This, like I said, it's a CPO. The CPOs come in a red box. Now they come in a cardboard box. Mine actually came in a red gun case. That's how old it went through. I mean, it went through 20 years ago. So it served, I'm gonna guess, 5 years of its life either on a police officer's hip or maybe in the military. More than likely the police officer carried it as a duty weapon. It had no ring marks. The engraving on the front was in good shape. Sometimes you get ring marks right there from their hands if they have a ring on their hand. Chances are SIG refinished it. That's my guess. It's maybe not. I don't really know. But it went back through SIG in 2000, and I have had it about less than a year now. The guy that I bought it from, he works for a friend of mine who runs a gun store, and he got it in 2000 when it came from SIG, and it's lived in his gun safe ever since. And so I was just swinging by my favorite little gun store, and they had it, and he goes, "That's my personal gun. I'm actually selling it." And I said, "Okay." Mint condition. Like I said, it's 20 years old since it's been reconditioned, and it's in mint shape. So it was worth a little bit more money because it was absolute perfect shape. No holster wear, no nothing. Just lived in an old man's gun safe for the last 20 years. So I'm guessing this was a 1995 gun. It was probably one of the latter guns that came from Germany back to America. And it was probably sent out to a police department and used for 5 maybe years, give or take. And then retired back through SIG. This gentleman I know got it in 2000 and it's lived in his gun safe for the last 20 years. And so I thought it was worth a little extra. If it was like most of the CPO SIGs I see, I probably wouldn't have given them more than $400 or $500 for it. They have a lot of holster wear and things like that. But new springs and everything from SIG. It shoots accurately. Barrel looks good. Minimal wear off the barrel. The guy that I bought it from said he didn't even shoot the thing. And I don't think he did. So minimal wear on the barrel. So if that's the original barrel, it has not been shot much in its life. So that's kind of nice. Or SIG replaced it and someone did shoot it a bit. Maybe he shot it more than he thought the guy bought it from. But regardless of which, it's accurate, feels good, and I really like the gun. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, comment down there at the bottom, and I do appreciate it. And keep an eye. I'll have another video on this sight tool that I bought. It's a universal, well-made from a machine company called, I think, D&D Machine. It's inexpensive. Anybody can afford one, and it, for the most part, will handle any handgun, as far as I can tell. It's an ingenious design, and that's like $60, $80. It's heavy duty. I'm going to have that video up shortly, and I'm going to replace the sights on this gun in that video. So anyway, thanks for watching. You guys enjoy.